Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of the Wine Soundtrack podcast. This is Kim Kashmar, and today you are about to go on a trip to Paso Robles, California. I'm sitting here with Kristen Barnhisel. She's the winemaker of white wines at Lohr Vineyards, and we're actually at the winery right now. It is a beautiful sunny day. And not only that, Kristen was also recently nominated for the Wine Enthusiast 2023 Winemaker of the Year Wine Star Award, which, as of the time of this recording, we don't have the final results yet, but even just to be nominated, I think you've already won, because they only nominate 4 to 5 people in the world a year. So big congratulations to you and welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to be here. And it's such an honor to be nominated for this award.
Yeah, I know, this is good. It's an honor for me to be sitting down with you. So thank you for making the time. A little birdie told me that you also know Italian. So do you want to say anything? Do you want to say hello in Italian to our Italian listeners?
Sure. Buongiorno tutti. Buona giornata. Benvenuti qui a Paso Robles, a Jerry Lohr, dove siamo qui al sole. C'è un bellissimo giorno qua. Degustiamo un po' di vino. Chin chin.
Awesome. Great. Well, as we dive in, let's start with your role at Jerry Lohr and what your focus is here. So your focus is white wines, and I kind of want to know from the beginning, where are you based, and what are the white wines that you're making?
Yes, so I'm based, I know we're here today in Paso Robles, but I'm based actually about an hour north in Monterey, where we make all the white wines for Jerry Lohr. So the white wines there at in that neck of the woods, actually we're about 20 miles due south of Monterey Bay. Fortunately, we have Monterey Bay, which is a huge font of very cool water, so we get really moderate temperatures there. The temperatures of the waters are about 50 degrees, and then in Arroyo Seco in Monterey, our temperatures remain very cool into maybe maximum 70s in the summer. So we get very cool weather, which helps preserve the acidity, and morning and evening fog, which is beautiful. And then what's interesting about the Salinas Valley is that as you go from Salinas on down toward Bradley in Monterey County, the temperatures rise as you get further south during the summer. So what's really unique is that actually the upshot of that is that the hot air rises and pulls in the wind from Monterey Bay. So the length of the Salinas Valley gets these winds in the afternoon that are about 20 miles an hour each day. And that actually shuts down the vines and pushes us well into October most seasons for our harvest. So
wow.
We get a very long season starting in April and May, and then going all the way through October and November for harvest each year.
Wow. So the focus then, we could say, cool climate white wines.
Oh, for sure. It's the best area for cool climate white wines. For one thing that really is unique as well about the Arroyo Seco is this combination of the winds that gives us that hang time, which increases acidity and gives us better texture. And in the Arroyo Seco, we also have throughout the appellation, about 6 to 7 feet down, we have this what we call greenfield potatoes. They are the cobblestones of the Arroyo Seco River. So all of our vines go through the sand and the chular loam that's in the topsoils, and then down into these wonderful cobblestone rocks that actually give us better balance and better drainage and better balance in the vines of leaf, vigor, and yield the fruit.
Wow. So what grapes are being grown there?
Primarily Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in that neck of the woods grows very well and has since inception. One of the first grapes we'll try today actually is Pinot Blanc, which is very fun. It does very well there too. Sauvignon Blanc does very well there. And we do have a little bit of Riesling as well these are some of the first varietals that Jerry Lohr planted in 1972 when he first came to Arroyo Seco.
Wow. Yeah. And I know you guys all heard this, so sorry that you're not sipping with us, but we will be tasting a wine or two during our episode today. So stay tuned for some details. We'll do our best to, describe all the flavors and hopefully get you excited about these wines. But before we dive into that, I want to know a little bit more about your story, Kristen. So kind of starting out, I know that you have made wine in 3 different continents. You have you were the first woman to work harvest at Ruffino in Tuscany. So there's been a lot of amazing travel and winemaking experience that you've had. So let's take it back to the beginning. Did you always know you wanted to be a winemaker, and how did you get started?
I got started very early on. I grew up in Santa Rosa in Sonoma County, where, with all the wineries and grapevines that are around there. But my mom worked at Simi Winery when I was young, and so she was microbiologist there. When I was 9 or 10, grew up on the catwalk smelling the Chardonnay smells and got to know the people there. And she had such a wonderful time and experience there at the winery, and so much fun for harvest. It was a great experience, and still she's my mentor. And then also Zelma Long, who was the winemaker at the time, continues to be my mentor, and look to her for leadership and guidance and role model for the wine industry. So I started there. I didn't always know. I kind of grew up with it, So. My dad made homemade wine, and so between my mom and my dad, it was always kind of present and on the table, enjoying that. But it really wasn't until my junior year abroad I went to Padova, and I actually studied a year at University of Padova, and that was my experience kind of out of the country and getting to know wine in a different setting, around the table and conduit to conversation. And that was the year actually that I knew I wanted to come back and be a winemaker. I went straight to Davis from there. So my undergraduate's in Italian literature, and my master's is in enology from Davis.
Oh, wonderful. And UC Davis, for anyone here that is not familiar, this is like the winemaking university, right, in California?
It is a nationwide, the top as well, I would say, in terms of the top research university in the nation for grape growing and winemaking, for sure.
Yes. Wonderful. So tell us a little bit more about your experience making wine on different continents. Where you said you traveled initially, kind of that's sort of what got you inspired, but where else have you been?
Well, I went back a couple of years after, in 1995, went back to work at Nozole at Ruffino, which was a wonderful experience there. It was right near Greve and Chianti. So just near there, just Paso de Pecorai. So the Shepherd's Pass is a very small area, but beautiful wines. So I had a very good experience there, getting to know the wines and getting to know a little bit more about Sangiovese and Chianti as a region. And then a few years later, actually, I had the chance to work in South Africa as well, and so did an internship there for the harvest at Warwick Estate, just outside of Stellenbosch. So just a good chance, again, just gathering experience and seeing how they do things in different parts of the world, and bringing all of that, to what I do today here at J. Lohr.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Interesting thing about starting your career with red wines. Now you're sort of the white wine maker. And I'd also just do want to mention, there was one other place that you did also do an internship at, and that was in Napa. Do you want to tell us where that was?
Oh, yes, at Opus One.
Yes. More red wines. So
I was working at, that was an interesting harvest because I was doing my research, which was Merlot clones with Duckhorn at their winery, and I was helping Zelma Long with Lohr Vineyards there in St. Helena too, right near Chapelet, up on Pritchard Hill, and then also working at Opus One. So I had 3 jobs that harvest.
Wow, harvest is no joke. It's hard work. So props to you.
Thank you. Not much sleep, but learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what got you into white wines? What kind of led you to this journey of working for J. Lohr and focusing so heavily on cool climate whites?
A few things I would say. First off, the white wines I find really challenging. I think in terms of they're so transparent. They're so, pure fruit in a glass. So it's just getting the balance just right, making sure it's not too acidic or not too the alcohol's too high. So just getting that balance right is very, very challenging. And I really appreciate that, the process that that you can make a wine, and basically what you see in the vineyard is what you get in the glass with very minimal intervention. So yeah. Or more appropriately, measured intervention.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you have to treat white wines in a different way.
Yes, you really do. Part of it is knowing when, as I was kind of alluding to, knowing when to intervene and when to let the wine just keep it topped and sit in the cellar. And I think that's really key in terms of how much, and especially with white wines with the potential for oxidation, we really want to protect them from any oxidative flavors or certainly color. So yeah. So I find it very challenging to make white wines. Throughout my entire career, I started at Columbia Crest also, and then through Jordan and through Handley Cellars and Inglenook. So I have continually made white wines as well alongside the reds throughout my career.
Yes, it wasn't all just red wines.
No, for sure not. And again, more challenging. I find it fun and challenging to make the whites. Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of wines, let's go. I know you have some here that you wanted to taste. And why don't we pour some? We can tell us a little bit about what makes these wines taste the way they do, what makes them so special as we go through. So let's go ahead and do that.
Sounds good.
All right. So we have the Rhone blend in our glass. Cheers.
Cheers.
Coming from Paso Robles, the Adelaida district. So we're south of Monterey here, talking about this wine. Paso is kind of known for Rhone grapes. Are you more of a fan of the Rhone whites or your Burgundy whites?
Oh, more of a fan of Burgundy whites, if I must be honest. But I enjoy making this. This is really a lot of fun too to work with the Rhone whites too. We call these the serious whites. So these are whites for winter whites or something with a little bit heartier food that we get to try down here. And we don't make both of these wines. These are for our wine club or through the wine center only. So these are smaller production, about 300 cases each that we make of these. So very fun to craft something each year that really exemplifies Paso Robles as well.
All right, so tell us about this one. What's our blend here, and what flavor profile were you hoping for, and what are we getting out of this?
Oh, sure. So to start, the blend is about 50% of it is Roussanne. So the base is Roussanne, and then we have about 35% that is Grenache Blanc, and about just 15% that is Viognier. And so this blend it starts with the texture that is Roussanne and beautiful, and has that little bit of straw and honey on the nose, highlighted with the Grenache Blanc, which brings you that melon and green apple, and then building complexity. That's a little much fresher on the palate as well. And the Viognier is just beautiful as tangerine and white peach on the nose. So we like this nice combination of all three of them.
Yeah, it's exactly like you said. I mean, for everyone here listening, when you go to taste this wine, it sits on your palate a little heavier. There is that acidity and that freshness, but it does feel more of like a winter wine. I'll drink whites all year. It doesn't matter when, but there's more weight to it. It's a little bit heavier on your tongue. Mm-hmm. And that's just, a sign of the grape varieties, right?
That comes directly from the vineyard. Yeah, so the varieties, again, the lightness of being, I think, comes from the Grenache Blanc. But to have that texture that is Roussanne underneath is just beautiful to work with. And so these are grapes here in Paso that are picked in the early morning and then brought to Monterey for pressing and for fermentation. Most of this is actually fermented in neutral French oak. We do have a little bit that we found in terms of what we call poly tanks, that are actually plastic tanks, about 260 gallons, that also they have less ingress of oxygen than even a neutral oak barrel does. And so we appreciate what that gives as well in terms of retaining the fresh fruit flavors and a little bit larger volume to give some texture. Those larger formats, whether it's 200 gallons or 500 gallons, as they ferment, they naturally stir the lees, so you do get more texture from a larger vessel.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great. All right, let's go on to our next one. And as we're doing so, I would love to know a little bit more about the sustainability practices at J. Lohr and the things that you're doing in the vineyard and in your winemaking.
Oh, certainly. So if we have time today, we could go on our sustainability climb that we did yesterday.
Are we taking the podcast on the road? To be determined.
Shots there. For sure. We have a spot where you can see actually here we actually have the only solar tracking array in California that is a tracking array of the solar panels to maximize the amount of sunlight that we can get and the efficiency that we get from the sunlight for the energy that we can produce. And in Greenfield, we are at 100% of covering our needs for the winery there. With the roof on the winery is entirely solar.
Wow,
that's a very good start in terms of what we look at for the environment.
So, do you know how big that area is? Because I've seen pictures of the solar field here, and it looks quite large.
I don't know the actual acreage, but but I do know we have 100 in Greenfield. I know that we have 100,000 square foot building, and that is covered with the solar panels on the roof.
Wow, that is really amazing, and I so appreciate that because sustainability is important.
It's very important. So we have a few things. We also closely monitor our water usage, as you might imagine, and have metrics each month to save water and practices. So we monitor and then improve each year on how much water we use. We've also got a water treatment facility here where we can treat the wastewater and then use it again for irrigation, again to save water usage. And we also recycle and construct. Sorry, I'll say it again. And we also have a large compost pile back in the back. So all of the pumice, the seeds, and the skins get mixed with fertilizer and then placed back in the vineyard as well, so that we're using natural nutrients as opposed to synthetic chemicals in the vineyard. So yes.
That is, I love to hear it. Love to hear it. Okay, so let's talk about the next wine that you have with us today. I believe it's this one. Okay.
So the next wine we're trying here is the 2022 October Night Chardonnay.
Why is it called October Night?
Well, it's actually picked in October, so that is what we love about Arroyo Seco in Monterey is that our area of Monterey County and Arroyo Seco it's a beautiful time to pick Chardonnay in October. But what makes this really unique, this wine, is that the basis is the clone 809, the Muscat clone of Chardonnay. So just that gardenia and ripe orange flavor, just beautiful and fresh. And then we handpick this fruit and bring it into the winery. It is 100% barrel fermented, like all of our Chardonnay is, hand stirred weekly and topped every 3 weeks. And we aged it in French oak. So it's just about 20% new French. So we just keep that fresh fruit flavor with a little bit of baking spices on the finish.
Sounds delicious. Okay. All right, we've got the Chardonnay in our glasses. We're also using a much wider glass. Is this what you would normally want your Chardonnay in? Is this the special glass for you?
Yes, this is a perfect glass for Chardonnay because it opens up. It gives you more surface area for the Chardonnay to open up. The glasses that we were using prior were of a smaller diameter and are perfect for aromatic whites and for the Rhone whites. But this Ballon style is traditional, and for a reason. You don't get nearly the depth and range of aromatics with a smaller diameter glass. So it really does glassware does make a difference.
Yeah, tell me about it. This smells delicious. So do you have I know you make a lot of different whites, and it might be hard to decide, but do you have a favorite white grape?
It would be Chardonnay. Chardonnay is a beautiful palette to work on. It's a beautiful canvas to work on. There's purity of fruit that you can see, like you taste the clone 809. in the vineyard, and you can see it here in the glass. And then you can have the choices of doing some lee stirring. You have the choice of malolactic fermentation. You have vessels. We do look at, I was saying, different vessels, whether they're barrels and puncheons or the oeuf de Beaune that we look at, and the different types of oak, of course, that we use. So those are all different. Again, it's like a chef. You can always add a little bit of spice, a little bit of richness. Or just, like if you're cooking, you would have a little bit of salt or add some thyme or something, some baking tarragon or baking spices. It's that last thing. So we have a lot of different tools we can use on the Chardonnays to really build complexity in the blends, and I do love that.
I love hearing that too. I think, especially for newer wine drinkers, and a lot of things that I've heard, just as a wine educator in Somm, is that some people will have a Chardonnay that is overly oaky or in a style they don't like, and then sort of write it off. And I feel like Chardonnay is one of those grapes that a lot of people do that with. So what do you have to say to that? Because this, of course, you said fermented in oak barrels, but it's definitely not overly oaky. It's delicate. It's got that baking spice. It's rich, but it's not going to be that oak bomb. So I want to know what your thoughts are on that, and maybe some of the different ways the Chardonnay can be presented.
Yes, and I appreciate that as well. Obviously, this is the style that we have here, and really appreciate showing the fruit. I think that's really our focus here on the J. Lohr White Wine Program, is to really always show the fruit. And I think my advice for somebody who might be out there, I would just say to keep trying, because there are Chardonnays out there of different styles, and there are the oaky and buttery ones. But there are also ones that really just showcase the fruit and really have some nice balance and freshness. And so maybe just keep trying until you find something that's more your style.
Absolutely. And I can attest that, this J. Lohr October Night Chardonnay would be a great one to try. Alrighty.
Thank you. One thing to mention too is that the Clone 809, two things I would say, just to share the blend that is the Corton Charlemagne blend in Burgundy is Clone 809 blended with Clone 548, and so we're very pleased to have those in our stable, in our vineyard, to be able to work with. And the Clone 809, what's lovely about the blending process for this is Clone 809 on its own is more like Viognier, so it is very forward, just a big wine, I would say, and very upfront. So crafting this is only about 60% or so Clone 809, so that we can actually blend in some freshness and some different layers there too. So that's very fun about this blend.
I'm sure as a Burgundy lover, that makes you extra excited.
It's very excited, yes. To be able to build layers literally from the ground up. Yeah.
Wow. All right, well, let's do our last one here.
So next we're going to taste, unfortunately, our final wine, but the 2021 Arroyo Vista Chardonnay. This is our reserve Chardonnay from Arroyo Seco. And the basis for this is Clone 76. So really more Meyer lemon, a little bit of brioche, ripe apple, very floral. We've aged it in French oak. It's about 45% new French oak for 14 months. But we do, understanding that we do blend in some freshness as well, so I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, let's go. Yay. Okay, so we're also using another balloon-shaped glass on this Chardonnay. Can you say what the name of that glass is again?
Ballon, in French, I think.
The ballon glass. Okay. So we've been talking about clones, and for anyone here that is not sure what a clone is, would you mind just kind of saying, briefly what makes a clone of a specific grape variety, or how that comes about?
Sure. So here in California, most all grapes at this point are composed of two components, I would say, and mostly that is for protection from phylloxera that has plagued Europe and here in the U.S. as well. Is it's a root louse or root bug that can actually feed on the roots of vines and can destroy them if you let them. But we've learned, and so we actually have all the vines are actually this root, like a rootstock that is resistant to these root bugs, but they're grafted on top of that would be a clone, and a clone is a type of Chardonnay I liken it to be like a different flavors of apples. Like you go to the store and you see apples, but there's Pink Ladies, there's Golden Delicious, there's Fuji's, and you know those all have different flavor profiles. And the same thing with the Chardonnay. And since Chardonnay is white wine and is so transparent, those flavors really come through in the glass, in the field and in the glass. And you can have anything from really light floral and green apple all the way through to really something tropical that'll come through, pineapple, stone fruit, white peach, yellow peach kind of flavors, and citrus, obviously, orange and tangerine citrus, all of the flavor profiles. And we get to fortunately blend those in a blend like this Chardonnay. In all of our Chardonnays, we have about 10 clones in total planted in J. Lohr in Arroyo Seco. But really pleased that we can focus on different clones like the clone 809 to kind of stylistically craft the October Night, and the clone 76 for our Arroyo Vista Chardonnay.
Wonderful. So this is... So this particular clone, you mentioned more of a Meyer lemon smell. And what else would kind of stick out for this clone in this wine here?
I would say Meyer lemon, a little yellow floral, primarily, and we get a little bit of, that ripe apple and pear. We're getting a little bit of the kind of brioche, a little hint of the ML characters coming through, that creaminess, and a little hint of the oak that comes through. But for 45% new oak, we actually do craft the blend. And just to say, we were talking about oaky, buttery Chardonnays. We do craft the blend, and then we pull out of new oak, usually in June or July. So maybe after 9 or 10 months, we make actually make the blend at that point to kind of freeze the new oak impression, and then age it in neutral oak from then on. So that gives us some freshness in the glass that we really appreciate in the final blend.
Yeah, this one definitely does have that freshness, as you were saying. Like, it's something I noticed right away. But I also do notice the ML, or the malolactic fermentation elements on this. It does sit on your tongue a little heavier. I do taste that dairy flavor. Do you encourage malolactic in all of your whites, or is that something that you only do for your Chardonnays?
Oh, only for the Chardonnays. Yes, for something like what we've tried with the Pinot Blanc, or we also mix, Sauvignon Blanc or the Rhone whites. We want to keep that fruit fresh, and so we discourage that. So if fermentation has completed on those whites, we would just go ahead and sulfur them and keep the fresh fruit. But for these, for our Chardonnays, we actually do look and monitor them as they're fermenting and aging now. From 2023, we're still going through malolactic, and just say, okay, that's a good spot, and then we can individually sulfur them, kind of mid malolactic as well. So this wine's about 80% through malolactic, and this one even less, about 70%. The October Night was about 75%. In terms of just keeping that freshness and having a little bit of creaminess. And I'm sure some of the palate weight too is extended, 14 months aging on lees, and the lee stirring that happens as well.
Yeah, that really does play a role in texture, doesn't it?
It does. With this one thing we love, lee stirring, both that, and then the lee stirring actually is protects against oxidation, so we can actually add a little bit less sulfur to the wines, and that is very helpful too.
All right. Okay, so before we close out, I want to do a little rapid fire round of some facts about J. Lohr and the winery. So first thing is total acreage.
4,000 acres between what we have here in Paso Robles, and I mentioned the 1,300 acres in Arroyo Seco.
Wow. How many cases of your whites are produced?
We do about 450,000 cases of whites.
Per year?
Per year, yes.
Wow. Where are your main markets?
Do you know we're distributed in all 50 states? And we're actually international as well. So primarily we export to Canada, but we are in Europe as well, South America, and even in Asia. So worldwide.
Wow, that is so impressive. And that must feel so exciting as a winemaker to know that there's people all over the world drinking your wines.
It is very exciting. And in fact, so last time I was in Italy, I did contact our VP of International Sales. Just said, can I get in touch with the J. Lohr up here? So no, I know for sure it's in Italy. I also had a chance to do a winemaker dinner in Tokyo, in Japan, when I was over there for the American Society for Enology and Viticulture. I'm a past president of ASEV, and that's an organization nationally and internationally that helps disseminate information from the universities and research from the universities to the industry. So in 2019, I was past president there and had an opportunity to present our Chardonnays in Tokyo. It was wonderful. Yes, very, very proud of that and honored for that.
Wow, that is incredible, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you everyone for listening and for tuning in to hear about the amazing wines that Kristen is up to at, J. Lohr here. And Kristen, before we close out, just want to know, how can people follow along with what you're doing? Where can they stay in touch with you?
There are a few things that they can follow. If you'd like to actually follow us for events on Instagram or Facebook, please do. And then for purchasing wines, feel free to visit jlohr.com, where you can actually purchase the wines directly, some of these smaller production lots. You can see about joining the wine club if you'd like. But also we have a store, find J. Lohr, store locator. So you can just put in your zip code and find our wines, and we can ship them out to you easily. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time and your generosity of sharing so much of your story and your winemaking with us. And thank you all for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.